So as you can see here, Final Cut was introduced in 1999 as a cost-efficient DV editor, but rapidly developed into professional post-production suites. 10.44, which is the version we're using, has three separate applications. If we move down to our dock here on the screen, you will see that Final Cut Pro itself is lodged on the dock. Further down here, we have what's called compressor. Compressor is what we use to export our completed work to either DVD or CD or internet or for streaming at different rates, etc., etc. And we also have a package called Motion. And Motion is what we use to do animation and graphic titling effects. It's generally what's used in the intro and outro sections that you've seen on the previous second year work that I've put up on Moodle. All of these applications live in the application folder. So to access on Mac, I'm going into Finder, and in Finder into Applications, and you can see they're all here. We'll just take one for example, so we'll just move straight to Motion, and you can see with Motion, here it is here, but we also have it down here on the dock. Whereas if it wasn't on the dock, if I was to remove it from the dock and let it disappear in a puff of air, poof, then I could replace it back onto the dock by basically going Motion, from the applications, dragging it down and dropping it onto the dock in whatever location I want, and that just becomes a shortcut to the Motion application itself. So as you can see, you can access them directly from the applications folder, or if you want, you can put a shortcut onto the dock for them. So the following now is a series of basic instructions to enable you to get started with the interface. So as you can see from the diagram at the bottom of page 1 on your Final Cut Pro handout 1, this is a diagram of the media, projects, events, and libraries. It's basically the structure under which Final Cut Pro X operates. There are two major groups of files, your media files and your project files. And as you can see from the diagram here, media are the large raw video and audio files which remain whole and untouched. These are literally what you import from your card. You record onto your card on the camera, you then stick that into a card reader, plug it into your system, and you open up Final Cut and you import the material into Final Cut. When it's imported, we get what are called the project files. These project files, as you can see, are small pointer files, and they reference where you have stored the larger media files. Now, both project files and media files live in what is called an event, and you can see the diagram for the event here. It's a star, and this houses media and projects. So in relation to events, events are then further stored in a library. So you can have as many different events in a library as you wish. But for our purposes, I want to show you exactly where our stuff is stored on the systems that we're going to be working with. On the Mac systems, you go down to your dock, you go into Finder, and in Finder, you go to the Movies folder that you will see in the left-hand column of the Finder display. When you open that, you will see a library. In this instance, on my machine, this library is called Tutorial. I can't open it by just double-clicking on it. I open it by right-clicking and then Show Package Contents. Within this tutorial library, you can see I have an event. The event is called November 2020. This material is basically project files. If I go into November 2020, you can see the material associated with this project, or rather with this library, which is called Tutorial. And the only original media I've imported to date is a single JPEG, but you can import all your original material in here via Final Cut Pro. The other thing I want you to note here is that when you go into your Movies folder, you will see that there is an Extras folder. In here at the moment, there is nothing, but we encourage you in the college that when you download material off the internet or from anywhere else, you store it in this Extras folder within your Movies folder in the left-hand column, so it's close to your main library. So now we're moving on to page 2 of your notes in the Final Cut Pro handout part 1. A lot of this stuff is immaterial. It's about the power setup in the individual edit suites and the usernames for groups. We'll be ignoring that until the time comes. What we're focused on here is the interface of the Final Cut Pro system. You can see it's broken down quite clearly into 5 sections: the library, the media browser, the inspector, and the timeline. Let's look at that for real by opening up Final Cut Pro off the dock by clicking on the shortcut icon. So here is my project. You will remember from the looking into the Movies folder in the Finder that we have a library called Tutorial, which you see here. Contained within that library is an event. In this case, it's called November 2020. We looked at the original material in there already, which was simply a standalone JPEG giving the Department of Media logo. Outside of that, we have what's called the Smart Collections. Now, if I close that and open it, you will see in Smart Collections we have a video area, an audio area, a still image area, an area for our projects, and an area for favorites, which you can assign once we're working on a project. For now, I want to just explain that this is the interface for how and where we store our material within our library. This is how we work with that media. It's the media browser. This is where that media is displayed. And once something is active, it will appear in the inspector section here. So let me demonstrate. I'm going to import a clip from a card onto which I have recorded. So I go to this import media from a device option. A separate window pops up and you can see I can import material from my desktop or from my main Macintosh hard drive, but the untitled here is an SD card from a camera. When I open that up, you can see I get a folder called private. Open that up, JVC, CQAV, clip, and on clip you will have anything you recorded onto your card. So there's a variety of options available to you here. You can see that you can add the material you're going to import to an existing event. In our case, that is the event called November 2020, or you can create a new event within the library and add it to there. You can see you can copy the files directly to the library, or you can leave the files on the card so that when the card is removed, the files cease to occupy the project. You can do keywords, more about that later, audio roles, more about that, transcoding, more about that. Analyze and fix. If there's an issue with the material you're importing, you can click on the Analyze Video for color, Analyze and fix audio problems, and you can get those problems fixed before you import them. For now, however, I'm going to import two clips just to demonstrate. I'm going to take part one of an interview here called Justin Interview 1. I'm going to go down and then holding the Command key on the keyboard, I'm going to press the left click again on the mouse and I'm going to import the gobbledygook numbered clip. Import selected. And you can see the two clips now appear in what we call our media browser. You can see that they're in the all video collection here if we want to look at them in a more simple laid back way. And you can see we have an interview with the subject. This is Justin, more about him in a moment. And we have the cutaway clip, which as you can see is currently gobbledygook. All you've got to do now is click on that once and then wide shot band performing. Sorry, I have caps on there. Band performing. And the clip is now renamed. Okay. Now, note up here, we have this funny little clock icon that's moving around. This is our import icon. It shows or hides the background tasks that are going on. So at the moment, the machine is still importing the two clips, Justin Interview 1 and Wide Shot Band Performing. And we know when they are properly imported when this little circle here fills completely. That's when we know. If we click on this, you can see background tasks, and at the moment it's still importing media. If I was to shut the project down now and take my card away, the media would not be fully imported. It would be missing. So always watch this little top corner icon and make sure that it is fully completed whatever background tasks are going on, and a little tick box has appeared in it, a little tick box that you'll see now momentarily. So we're at 91%. It's just closing up here and you can see bang, and you get a little tick. Okay, now it's safe to close down the project and the material will be there. When I say the material will be there, what do I mean? Let me minimize Final Cut. Let me minimize our document. And let's go back to Finder, Movies, and as before, right click on Tutorial, Show Package Contents, go into the November 2020 event, and now look at Original Media. Now you can see the Justin 1 movie has been imported, and the gobbledygook clip has been imported, which I've renamed in Final Cut. I can now go to my original card. I can open it from the desktop here, open, and I can navigate to Private, JVC, CQAV, Clip, and I can now click on the Justin Interview 1 clip and right click, move to Thrash, and click on the gobbledygook clip and right click, move to Thrash. File, or Finder rather, empty Thrash. So the material has now been cleared from my machine, cleared from my card, but obviously it has still been saved into the original media in your November 2020 event in your tutorial library in Movies in the left-hand column of your Finder. If you look at the bottom of page 2, top of page 3 of your notes, here's our section on importing material that we've just demonstrated. But there is a secondary option that I sometimes will undertake. I'm just going to minimize this. And for now, I'm just going to close down my Final Cut Pro section. So we go back to the idea of inserting your card. You pop your card into the card reader. You plug the card reader into the machine. It'll pop up. You right-click, open, and then you navigate through Private, JVC, CQAV, clip, and here's all your clips. So what you can actually do, and what I would normally do here, but I can't do it because I'm recording with QuickTime, is you would double click on the clip. It would open in QuickTime. In QuickTime you can then trim the clip by setting trim points. Just go edit trim in QuickTime. You can set in and out points, shorten the clips so you lose any unnecessary footage, rename them. And what I would then do is I would create a folder on my desktop, new folder, name of my project, we call this just tutorial for now, and I would copy those saved images into my, or those saved trimmed clips into my tutorial folder. Then I would go back, open up Final Cut Pro, go to my import option, and go to my desktop, and you can see on my desktop now that we've got this new folder called tutorial. I could just highlight that folder, and you can see that I have the option here of basically importing my files directly into the library, but that I can import them from folders. So if I just leave under keywords from folders on, it means when I import this, the full folder comes in. Nothing in there, so I'm just demonstrating that. Moving on to the bottom half of page 2 of your notes, you will see the editing basics section. So the first thing we're going to look at here is the commands and customize options in Final Cut. If we open up Final Cut, you can see that under the Final Cut Pro drop-down, there's a section called Commands, and if you go into Commands, you can open up Customize. Now what Customize does is it shows you the keyboard, and basically when you bring your cursor over the keyboard, it will tell you what each individual key does. So W is to insert a shot, for instance. B is to use the blade tool. Space is to play or pause the shot. I is to mark an in point, set range start. O is to mark an out point, set range end. And you can see what they all do along here. There's also a text display that shows you what they do, and there's also shortcuts here from the keyboard. Now I've included a list of the top 40 most popular keyboard shortcuts with the tutorial 8 this week. What I'm pointing out here is that editors very often will formulate the keyboard to suit their own style. So you can basically set the keyboard to have each key do specific things that you want them to do, and then you can save that setting and you can open that setting whenever you open up Final Cut and work with your own preferenced keyboard. However, for the duration of this course, I would suggest we just work with the shortcuts that we already have, and you can figure out what they are by looking at the list of 40 that I've put up, but also by looking at the commands option. Remember, it's basically commands, customize, that will show you your keyboard, and then you can just bring your cursor over and see whatever it is each individual key does. Let's close that down. Next up, we're going to look at the top left-hand corner of the library pane. And here you will see 3 icons. The current icon highlighted in blue is your libraries pane icon. It basically shows you the projects, as you've already discussed. It shows you your event, your smart collections with projects, video, audio, etc. Next one in is the photo and audio sidebar. If we click on this, you can see that not only can you access material you might have in GarageBand or material you might have in iTunes, but there's also a lot of pre-recorded sound effects. So let's try a few of these. Play whoosh, and let's scroll up and have a play with vintage news sting. Suspense. Typewriter. So all I'm really saying here is play around with these effects. There's plenty of them in here, and you may find that they enhance as wild tracks the material that you're working on. The third button, we click here, is basically titles and generators. So you can see there's a variety of different types of titles available to you. 3D text titles, if we look at them here, 3D cinematic, build in, build out, so that's kind of animated text stuff. Bumper openings give you graphics as well, and again with these you can kind of combine animation with graphics. So these could be often used for, you can see here for instance, could be a news report. You could use this, and where the picture of the field is, you can drop in your own image to illustrate the report you're talking about. And there's a whole variety of these down here. You have to remember this is a massive system. You can see end credit options available to you down here, and again where the mountain picture appears, you can drop in your own images, comic book style graphics, so on and so forth. There's plenty of them to play with. Custom settings, elements, speech bubbles, etc., etc. But if we work down, you'll see there's a whole variety of lower thirds being the name and description of the person that's being interviewed, so you can choose to drop these on. Wide variety of them, as I say. You can also see then under generators that we have selections of different styles of backgrounds, which you can use as a background on your green screen. There's your curtain, your standard theatre curtain. You can see there are also elements for slightly more advanced stuff. We won't be doing this here. It's kind of for chroma keying and superimposing. There are solid colors, so you can give solid backgrounds. You've got a regular green screen here you can use straight away, and if you go into custom, you can choose from the custom setting a variety of different color ranges. And then there are textures, so you can get various different colored texture backgrounds as well that may or may not be pleasing for backdrops for people that you have green screened. To move up onto the top section up here, we're on page 3 of your first handout now, and these icons appear over the inspector area. At the moment there is nothing to inspect. The top 3 blue icons allow you to change the interface depending on what tasks you are undertaking. You can show or hide the browser, the timeline, or the inspector. It's simply a question of playing with the formats here to get different layouts on your screen, as you can see. So depending on the layout you choose, you can basically find different interfaces with which to work your way around the Final Cut Pro system. And all of these can be resized and moved. You can grab angles here to make your browser screen bigger if you want to look at your finished work. You can move in here, beg your pardon, you can move in here so you can see your timeline and your media area and your library area as we did at the start, but note the inspector has disappeared here, and then you can open the inspector off this one and the inspector appears. This again is just very much just editor preferences in terms of the way they might want to view things. Now the next 3 icons we want to look at here is this little view. So the view here basically describes various options that you have in terms of seeing scopes and fields and safe areas and luminance and saturation, all things to do with when we have material in the system and we want to just check that the quality of the material is fine. You can also see then that beside the view, if we go back into inspector, I'm just going to choose an image here to inspect by going back into my project. And now that we have this, you can see that various effects appear in relation to the clip that I've loaded into the browser. So up here you can see a variety of little options. The film strip icon means that you can apply effects to the clip that are film based. The audio icon means that you can enhance audio by diminishing loudness, increasing noise removal, changing the stereo, mono settings of the dialogue, etc. This little icon here just gives you information on the clip, how long it is, when it was made, how many audio channel outputs there are on it, etc. And finally, this little icon here is simply an attribute icon. It allows you to name the clip, give it a description, and tag it so that you can save it into subfolders. More about that as we move on.